Hello, I wanted to record my positive experience playing Pokemon Platinum this evening. It was nice and good and relaxing and evocative, and then just what felt more like a joyful, worthwhile time. I feel like that's a significant thing because it's difficult to, I don't know. It feels like it's very unreliable for me to get in the headspace that makes playing a game a good time, a time that feels like satisfying and good and stuff. Um, and I thought I'd try and share what I thought might have contributed to making it a good time. I know I've done this before. This felt slightly different, or at the very least, it was a different experience than the one I recorded related to Fire Red and Kraid and stuff like that. But I was not doing so hot in the moments leading up to it, or at the very least, I was feeling a little overwhelmed, a little just like, I think, kind of with the sense of looming. There's things I should be doing that I don't really feel like doing, or I don't know what's a priority or what I should be addressing, and I just don't feel compelled. Um, and it's awkward because I don't know. I'm still figuring out what's best for me ultimately. And sometimes it can sound counterintuitive to indulge in something recreational. Um, in the pursuit of like and like fully indulge in it too, um without any like trying to let go of any sense of I'm doing this for a functional purpose of ultimately getting myself back on track so I can be safe and take care of myself, kind of thing, and work towards being a more functioning human. um it can be awkward to let go of that attitude and that mind state, but I think letting go of that is what helps contribute and make the activity that you pursue a good worthwhile one. And I think that mind state of letting go of that pursuit is probably good. At least that's the vague idea I get from all the self-help stuff I've been listening to. Like you're not supposed to be living in fear, or like like there's a balance of surviving and joy, or whatever. But it's not all about like, I don't know. I find myself very much very easily in the mind state of like ultimately what I care about is comfort and safety, and everything is ultimately in the pursuit of that. And so even if I'm like suspending my fear or suspending, you know, uh that that idea in my mind, if I'm letting go of that, like ultimately it should still be in the pursuit of that, even if I'm like not focused on that, or if I'm trying to let go of that mentality, um or whatever. I don't know how that'll make sense if I'm listening to this back, but whatever. But anyways, um but yeah, but anyways, so yeah, feeling a little overwhelmed, and I think I've been trying to put more into practice when I find myself in that place, just going into self comfort, self care mode. Um, I'm not sure how, like, I don't know. I can't say that it's like totally good thing, or that like it's only ever doing good things for me to put myself in self care, self comfort mode. Like, I don't know. I don't want to totally say that, or at the very least, like, there's got to be a balance. If there's something pressing or something, you kind of have to address. Like, it's not, understanding it's not sustainable to put that off forever. But still, like, I think it is important to get into that mindset of, you know, I don't have to do anything, kind of thing. I don't owe anyone anything. And try and trust that, like, as uncertain as whether or not I could be okay if I lost the things that, give me security. As uncertain as that is, it's also uncertain whether I'll be okay, you know, in the next 5 seconds or the next 10 seconds or hour or whatever. Who knows what terrible things could happen? Who knows what my body could suddenly start doing that would not be good? Every moment and every choice is a step towards uncertainty or whatever. Um, and like acting like things won't be okay if you stop caring about that is not exactly true. And you can afford to suspend that care. And if suspending that care does more to get you back into a good place, it's worth it, kind of thing. Um, anyways, some of that was a tangent. Um, but ultimately, I think I started it back in a place of like, dude, I love you. I really love you. I care about you. And not because I'm afraid or not because I think this serves a purpose, but like I genuinely want to feel a love for you. And like I genuinely want you to like feel good and okay and like relaxed and like there's no pressure. Um and starting from that place, it's where like, okay, then you can get to like, because it's so interesting. Like, I can definitely feel it feels like there's a clear difference between like, I should pursue something comforting in the pursuit of hopefully it makes me feel good and then I'll feel better and more willing to do good things. Like that's a very functional mindset. And I think when I'm in that mindset, usually those pursuits aren't as satisfying or worthwhile as I'd like. Um, Now, sometimes they are, especially if it helps a lot if I can actually imagine how it's going to go. If I've got a good sense of like how I'm going to feel engaging in the comforting activity and where it'll leave me afterwards, if it'll leave me like feeling refreshed and satisfied. Like that's been happening a lot with like drinking tea and stuff like that. Um, I usually think of drinking tea as like kind of a pivot or just something that like sets me. But even then, like not always. Like I can definitely imagine like, oh, I want something comforting. Tea would be nice, but I can imagine I'm going to drink this tea and I'm not actually there's I'm in a mood state right now and drinking this tea is not going to actually help me be more willing or something like that. Um and so anyways, that's like how I was feeling before I'd like actually established this intention of like letting go. um, where I was like, maybe would ice cream make me feel more willing? I mean, it'll be nice, I guess, but I'm definitely not gonna. I can. I've got a clear imagination, a clear idea that like I'm not gonna be feeling any better after this. This is just gonna be a shallow distraction. Um, and same with like even playing Pokemon. That was what I had in my mind before I like engaged in this. Like, dude, let it go. It's okay. I love you. And like you can do whatever you want and let's just try and like imagine what would be nice right now, and not because like we need something nice or like it serves a purpose or I don't know, like let's just try and imagine. And it's so awkward because I say that and I've like tried that before and it doesn't always work, and so there's I'm sure there's something a little more specific maybe going on or something I'm not totally clarifying, but like yeah, I was able to get in touch with that feeling of letting go of pressure. And I think getting back in touch with that, like, I could die tonight. This could be my final moments. And how would I want to spend these final moments? What would be like most evocative and vivid and, you know, nice? And I felt a good sense of like eating. And then all of a sudden I did find like, you know what? I think eating ice cream and playing Pokemon, I do get a sense of like goodness in that. And it's not just a distraction. It's not just a shallow thing that I'll feel lethargic and bored and unsatisfied afterwards. Like I think this is going to be a nice time. I'm going to feel satisfied doing it. I think I'm going to feel good afterwards, kind of thing. At the very least, I wasn't considering how I was going to feel afterwards very much, but I did have a sense of goodness in the pursuit of like ice cream and playing Pokemon. It did feel like a very much we're doing this for me, and there's no fear or functional purpose behind this. This just I just imagine this as a joyful thing or something. I use that word joyful very um I don't totally know what joy means besides just like meaningful happiness or meaningful pleasure, um, or significant positive feelings. Um, that's how I apply it. But I just know that like when I've heard it, it's like used in the context of like there's a difference between being happy and being joyful, and like joyful is like you're living your best life or something like that. Um, but I don't know. I thought it was significant and interesting how I could go from like ice cream and video games sounds shallow to ice cream and video games sounds like joyful and like vivid and evocative and nice and comforting and letting go in a good way. Um, but anyways, that was what I connected with, and just that sense of like, yeah, I might die tonight, and like I this is a this is I can't say it's the best way that I could uh, if this is the last thing I did before I die tonight, kind of thing, you know, is this the best thing? I can't say it's the only thing that could have been the most best thing, but I would have been satisfied. Like this would have been a fine night to go out on if I passed away and this was my like final moments kind of thing. And so it had that ness to it or whatever. And I think that's a goodness. And I think I mean, ideally, you're living every day in that, like, and every moment in that, like, kind of space. I think that's what I read recently too, and I think I like that idea. I feel like that makes every moment meaningful and significant and evocative and vivid in a good way. Um, and anyways, I was just getting in touch with that feeling of like I am I'm not looking for any other way to spend this moment or this feels like the most vivid evocative way to spend my time on earth and what may be my last night kind of thing or whatever. um and so it had that ness to it, which was very satisfying and nice. um but yeah, and then playing Pokemon Platinum, it's interesting because this has been like the vacillating thing of like I have sometimes been connecting back with like the evocative, nostalgic aesthetic. I don't know, just what it felt like to me, what I remember of its ness when I played it, like from my early childhood, when I was like 8, 9, 10, or something like that, maybe even younger. Um, yeah, I guess I would have been younger too. Yeah, I must have been younger. Like, oh my gosh, it's crazy to imagine. I guess I must have been like 6 or 7 because I definitely didn't have it when I was 8. That wouldn't have been yeah, that's crazy. Um, my gosh. But anyways, it just had a very, like I was getting back in touch with some feeling it had. I remember it having some very evocative feeling of what made it unique and distinct and special, as a kid. Um and that made it inspiring, and it's awkward because I haven't always been able to get in touch with that. I'm like still trying to figure out how to consistently like connect with any video game. Like sometimes I can be inspired and charmed and like connecting with the evocativeness of it, of any video game, and then other times I'm like this is boring. I'm uninterested. I'm not charmed. This isn't good enough for me to spend time on. And not that like and I'm by that I mean just like I'm not feeling anything playing this or whatever. Um, and like it's awkward because it almost makes me wonder, like, oh, you're just getting lost in a mentality of like, like sometimes I want to believe that like the reason I'm not connecting is because I'm coming at a game with too much of an expectation or too much of a like I'm grasping for that ness. I am like waiting on bated breath, or I'm just like I'm playing it for that purpose. I'm putting too much pressure on it to be something or to feel something for it to feel a certain way. And maybe that's what causes me not to connect, rather than like something like trying to be more open. But like I don't think it's just that exactly. I know it's something related, like you know, there's definitely something related to the idea of like if you're playing this for the functional purpose of trying to feel this feeling, it's going to make it less likely that you're going to feel that feeling. Maybe um, there might be something to that, but like there is also something to like trying to focus your mind and your attention on the game in a certain way so you do connect with it, and that like you're being conscientious, you're putting your effort and focus on the game a certain way, you're being intentional in trying to make it a certain experience. um and I feel like that can lead to a good experience. That can be the difference between whether you connect or not, in that like whether you put your focus a certain way. um and you can intentionally try and put your focus a certain way to get a certain type of connection and feeling, and that does work out sometimes. And anyways, as I was like playing the game, it's interesting because I was already in that place of like I can imagine this, I can imagine the feeling, and I could imagine I already felt like I was connecting before I'd even turned the game on. um I had that openness and that sense of like I think this is a good way to spend my time, and I already felt like I was connecting with some. It's interesting. Pokemon is also like awkward because like I don't know. A lot of it is creating your own meaning. You're building your own team with these random Pokemon, and it's up to you to like make it personal and make sure you care about who you have on your team and make sure you care about the effort that you put in, and as well as like I yeah, just that like I feel like it's definitely been very easy for me to be like this is boring, I don't care about anyone on my team, or I don't care about what I'm doing, this feels repetitive and dull and I don't care about what I'm doing. But like it's so interesting how well I mean yeah, so that's what makes Pokemon a little bit more of a vulnerable gameplay experience when I'm like trying to have a good connecting significant time or whatever, because like it's a little bit more on you to make it meaningful rather than like playing a curated experience where you're just like playing through something that was like that's already complete, like Legend of Zelda, or maybe a Mario game or something. But yeah, it's so weird. But anyways, I felt like I was connecting. I chose a Piplup, and I don't have it was interesting comparing it to my Fire Red playthrough, which like I kind of chose a vibe for that with like, oh, it's like a space bounty hunter, space pirate bounty hunter kind of vibe or something. And naming my Pokemon after Metroid related things. And like I didn't have a theme this time around. I just felt a vague aesthetic connection to like doing it with Piplup, and like, oh, they're kind of cool and cold and slightly darker but still like pretty, and it's not like broody or whatever. It's just like a little more chill and cool. Um but I don't know, I felt like I was able to connect with that like cute and cool or something like that with Piplup. And and then I caught a Shinx, and I was like, you know what, I can connect with this. This is cool to have like this electric guy, and I actually like his like final evolution. He looks kind of like badass and cool. And I feel like that kind of fits with what I'm doing with Piplup. Um, and like it's so interesting. Like the gameplay is repetitive. You're just doing things over and over again, but like it felt good and meaningful and satisfying. I felt like I cared about these teammates. Um, as well as like I was connecting back again with like the ness of Pokemon Platinum, Diamond and Pearl, or whatever. Like I was like, and then one of the big differences I think is like playing it on an actual DS, where like the resolution is really it's so much more enhanced, and it's weird considering how much that might make the difference between whether I have a good time or a bad time with a game, like the visuals, the quality, um, how much that like can affect your gameplay experience is interesting to me. Um, a little sad, like that it's that vulnerable. Um, but at least I'm learning something, maybe. Because I used to play Platinum on my 3DS, and I was like, I didn't realize how bad the resolution was until I played it on my DS, and I was like, oh wow, like this is crazy. How much better it is. But, anyways, the visuals just very much immersed in the platinum vibes and childhood platinum vibes. I mean, technically, I played Pearl or whatever, but you know what I mean. So I was like immersed in that, which is so weird. Um, and then I was also like immersed in the idea of like it's so interesting. I haven't felt this way in a while, but like giving myself permission to imagine and like let myself play as long as I wanted to with no fear of consequences and no sense of like I'm doing something wrong. Like I can imagine staying up as late as I wanted to play as much as I wanted to. And like I had a sense of whimsicalness or a sense of just like relaxed, I don't know, niceness. And it's interesting because that can also very easily, that's definitely been a lethargic thing in the past where you're like playing a game and you don't want to stop and you're hooked, even though you're like also tired and you're kind of annoyed almost. It's this like weird thing if you're just hooked playing a game. You're just like stuck, not wanting to stop progressing and not wanting to stop playing, but you're kind of just digging yourself into a deeper and deeper hole where ultimately you're not going to feel good after that, after what you did. Um, but like this time, as I was imagining it felt like a whimsical way of like giving myself permission to immerse myself in the game a little more, or just feel like I was totally free with it. And that was where like maybe I should have been a little more careful. Um, it is awkward, like considering just like trying to manage that balance of surviving versus like trying to let yourself, be free and joyful and stuff like that. Like how much time should I spend playing, or how much time should I let myself spend, like, or how much how much to be in this joyful state and then switch over to, okay, we're doing good, I appreciated this, I'm grateful for this moment I had, let's get some stuff done. um like, because I don't think it's a matter of the more time you spend the more energy you get back or something like that. I do think it's something closer to like getting yourself back to a good state. Um, and yeah, I don't know. So that's where I was a little more frivolous. I didn't spend, I spent like maybe 2-ish hours total playing. Whereas, usually I don't play for more than like maybe 30 minutes at a time. Um, but yeah, I think the other thing that like takes away, and I wrote this in my notes, and I probably may have said this in my other Kraid Pokemon Fire Red review thingy or whatever. But like, I think the thing that takes away is like anytime you start planning ahead, or you start like your mind is occupied like tactically, or like, yeah, thinking about the future, thinking about like, oh, how am I going to deal with this, or how am I going to like what should I be doing to make sure this goes well? Um, that was awkward, and that could definitely take away from like I think just being in the moment and appreciating the ride and the vibe. Um, to be like, ooh, how do I want to split up experience points between my teammates? How long do I actually want to have a Shinx and Luxio or Luxray on my team? Are they worth it? Let me look at their moves and make sure I'm not wasting my time with something that's ultimately just going to be annoying or like a waste of experience points. And then it's like this awkward tactical dialogues in my head where I'm like not thinking about the emotional journey or the personal emotional journey I'm having, or like just the story or whatever that I'm creating. I'm just like trying to think about, I don't know, something more tactical and like preparations for a smooth, good time, which is awkward because, yeah, I don't know, like, I don't know what that balance is of like, you know, understanding that your choices will affect the experience you have. Um, and that like certain choices are going to lead to a more maybe awkward or inconvenient playthrough than other choices or whatever, but like also still trying to have the primary focus being on like just riding the journey and like enjoying the ride kind of thing and not worrying about stuff and not taking yourself out of the present moment and stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other insights. Seating arrangement was a little awkward. I started in my desk chair, and that was nice. But then I got to my bed, trying to have a cozier time, and I just couldn't get it right. My neck was awkward the most of the time. But I was still, I think the biggest thing that I was connecting with was just like, and it did take active effort and like intention to keep my focus here. But like on just like feeling the nostalgic and like the evocative sense that I felt from Platinum. Just the visuals, everything. My throat is so dry. Goodness. I don't know how well I did explaining this. I hope I don't know. I I'm wishing I just want to make this more consistent. I want to figure out how I can reliably like have a good time playing a game. But yeah, anyways, that's what I got.